Document. Part 1 The shuttle descended through the thick, swirling clouds of the Academy's home planet, a world known for its pristine landscapes and advanced technology. Leela Carter stared out the small window, her fingers tracing the edge of her seat as she tried to steady her breathing. It wasn't fear that gripped her, it was something deeper, a mix of excitement and unease. She had spent her entire life on a harsh desert planet where survival meant enduring scorching days and freezing nights, battling predators and scavenging for food. But this was different. This was a chance to prove herself in a galaxy far larger than anything she had ever known. The other recruits sat around her, some chatting nervously, others lost in their own thoughts. Most were aliens, their appearances ranging from sleek, scaled beings with glowing eyes to hulking creatures with multiple limbs and armored hides. Among them, though, were the humans Alex Monroe, who leaned back in his seat with an air of cocky confidence, and Mia Foster, who sat quietly, her sharp gaze taking in every detail of the cabin. Leela glanced at them briefly before returning, her focus to the view outside. She didn't know these people yet, but she could already tell they were nothing like the inhabitants of her homeworld. As the shuttle touched down on the landing pad, a metallic hiss filled the air, followed by the soft thud of the ramp lowering. Bright sunlight spilled into the cabin, forcing Leela to squint as she stood and joined the line of recruits filing out. The Academy loomed ahead, a massive structure of gleaming silver and glass that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. It was beautiful, yes, but there was also an intimidating coldness to it, as if the building itself were judging each person who stepped onto its grounds. "This place is insane," Alex muttered under his breath as he walked beside Leela. His voice carried a hint of awe mixed with sarcasm. "I mean, what are we even doing here? Half these guys look like they could crush us without breaking a sweat." Leela shrugged, keeping her expression neutral. "We're here because we earned it. Same as them." Alex raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, he glanced over at Mia, who was walking silently a few paces ahead. "What about you, Foster? You got any brilliant plans for surviving this?" Mia turned slightly, her dark eyes locking onto Alex's for a moment before shifting to Leela. "Survival isn't about planning," she said softly. "It's about adapting. We'll see how well everyone does once the real tests start." Her words sent a shiver down Lila's spine, though she didn't let it show. Mia was right, this wasn't just about passing exams or completing drills. This was about proving they belonged among the best fighters in the galaxy. And Leela knew better than anyone that belonging wasn't given. It had to be fought for. A loud voice cut through the murmurs of the group, drawing everyone's attention. Standing at the top of the stairs leading into the Academy was a towering figure, its insectoid body covered in glossy black exoskeleton plates. Long antennae twitched atop its head, and its mandibles clicked rhythmically as it spoke. This was Instructor Varnick, the name whispered with equal parts respect and dread by everyone who had heard of him. "Welcome," Varnick began, his voice deep and resonant, carrying easily across the courtyard. "You have been selected from countless applicants to train here, at the finest combat academy in the known universe. Many of you will fail. Those who do not will become legends." Leela felt her stomach tighten at his words. Legends. That wasn't why she was here. She wasn't looking for fame or glory. She wanted to survive, to make sure no one ever looked down on her again, because of where she came from. Still, she couldn't deny the weight of Varnick's presence. He radiated authority, his six-limbed frame moving with precision as he paced back and forth in front of the recruits. "You will endure challenges beyond your wildest nightmares," he continued, his piercing gaze sweeping over the group. "Your bodies will ache. Your minds will break. And when you think you can go no further, you will push harder. Only then will you discover what you are truly made of." Beside her, Alex shifted uncomfortably. While Mia remained perfectly still, her face unreadable, Leela clenched her fist, briefly reminding herself to stay calm. She had faced worse than threats before. Much worse. After what felt like an eternity, Varnick dismissed them, instructing them to report to their assigned barracks. As the group dispersed, Leela found herself walking alongside Alex and Mia once more. Neither of them spoke immediately, the gravity of Varnick's speech hanging heavy in the air. "So," Alex finally said, breaking the silence, "what did you guys think of Bugface back there?" Mia shot him a disapproving look. "Don't call him that. He's dangerous, and you'd be smart to remember it." "Relax, Foster," Alex replied with a grin. "I'm just saying, he seems like the type who enjoys making people miserable." "He does," Leela interjected quietly, "but misery isn't new to me." Both Alex and Mia turned to look at her, surprise evident in their expressions. For a moment, Leela considered explaining the endless battles against nature, The constant struggle to find water, the scars that marked her skin, but she decided against it. They wouldn't understand. Not yet. Anyway, when they reached the barracks, Leela claimed a bunk near the corner, away from the main flow of activity. As she unpacked her meager belongings, a change of clothes, a utility belt, and a worn photograph of her family, she noticed Alex watching her curiously. "You don't talk much, do you?" he asked, leaning against the frame of the bunk above hers. "No," Leela replied simply, meeting his gaze. "Talking doesn't win fights." Alex chuckled, shaking his head. "Fair enough, just don't expect me to shut up anytime soon." Despite his bravado, Leela sensed a vulnerability beneath Alex's confident exterior. Maybe he was scared too, though he'd never admit it. "And Mia?" Leela glanced toward the other side of the room, where Mia was meticulously arranging her gear. There was a quiet strength about her, a determination that reminded Leela of herself. As night fell and the barracks grew quiet, Leela lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of their training, a series of tests designed to push them to their limits. She didn't know what awaited her, but one thing was certain: she wouldn't back down. Not here. Not now. For the first time in years, Leela allowed herself to imagine a future beyond her desert planet. A future where she stood shoulder to shoulder with warriors from across the galaxy, proving that strength wasn't defined by size or species. It was defined by heart, and Leela Carter had plenty of that. With that thought, she closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Document. Part to ***. The morning sun rose over the academy, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The recruits assembled in neat rows, their uniforms crisp and unfamiliar. Leela stood tall, her hands clasped behind her back as she waited for instructions. Around her, the others shifted uneasily, some glancing nervously at Instructor Varnick, who strode into view with the same commanding presence he had displayed the day before. His glossy black exoskeleton gleamed in the sunlight, and his clicking mandibles echoed through the silence. "Today," Varnick began, his voice sharp and cutting like a blade, "you will learn discipline. Discipline is the foundation of combat. Without it, you are nothing but animals flailing in chaos." Leela felt a flicker of irritation at his words. She had grown up surrounded by chaos storms that tore apart shelters, predators stalking the dunes, but she knew how to survive. Her kind of discipline wasn't learned in classrooms or drills. It was forged in the harshest conditions imaginable. Still, she kept her expression neutral, refusing to give him any reason to single her out. Varnick gestured toward a series of obstacles set up on the field: a climbing wall, a rope course, and a pit filled with jagged rocks. "You will navigate these challenges one by one. Failure will not be tolerated." As the first recruit stepped forward, Alex leaned closer to Leela. "This doesn't look so bad," he whispered, though his knuckles were white from gripping the edge of his utility belt. "Don't underestimate it," Leela replied softly, her eyes fixed on the obstacle course. "He's watching us. Every move matters." One by one, the recruits attempted the course. Some struggled, slipping off ropes or hesitating midway through the climb. When it was Alex's turn, he moved quickly, his confidence propelling him upward. But halfway across the rope bridge, he faltered, his foot catching on a loose plank. He swung precariously, cursing under his breath as he regained his balance. From below, Varnick clicked his mandibles disapprovingly. "Foolish human," the instructor sneered. "Your arrogance will get you killed." Alex flushed red but said nothing, finishing the course with gritted teeth. When he rejoined the group, Leela noticed the frustration simmering beneath his forced smile. He wanted to prove himself, but Varnick's taunts were chipping away at his confidence. Mia went next. Moving with quiet precision, she took her time, calculating each step before committing to it. Though slower than Alex, she completed the course without error, earning a rare nod of approval from Varnick. Leela watched her closely, impressed by her focus. There was wisdom and patience, something Leela had learned the hard way on her homeworld. Finally, it was Lila's turn. As she approached the starting line, Varnick's antennae twitched, and he tilted his head slightly. "Ah, the Death World Scavenger," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Let us see if your primitive instincts serve you here." Leela ignored him, stepping onto the course without hesitation. The climbing wall came first. Its surface slick and uneven, she scaled it effortlessly, her muscles accustomed to scaling cliffs and rocky outcrops. At the top, she paused briefly, scanning the next section, a narrow beam suspended high above the ground. Without missing a beat, she crossed it, her movement steady and deliberate. The final challenge was the rock pit, where recruits had to leap from stone to stone without falling. Several had stumbled earlier, landing painfully among the jagged edges. Leela studied the layout for a moment, then sprang forward, landing lightly on each rock with practiced ease. Within moments, she reached the end, turning to face Varnick with a calm expression. For a split second, there was silence. Then Varnick let out a low, guttural sound that might have been laughter or disdain. Impressive, he admitted grudgingly. But speed means nothing without strategy. We shall see how you fare in combat. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of drills and exercises. Push-ups, sprints, and hand-to-hand sparring dominated the schedule, leaving the recruits exhausted. By lunchtime, many were nursing bruises or limping toward the mess hall. Leela sat with Alex and Mia, picking at her food while listening to their conversations. I can't believe that guy, Alex muttered, stabbing at his plate with unnecessary force. Who does he think he is? Calling me foolish like I'm some rookie, he's trying to break us. Mia said quietly, her dark eyes scanning the room. It's part of the process. If we let him get inside our heads, we're done. Leela nodded in agreement. He wants us to react, to lash out. Don't give him the satisfaction. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. Easier said than done. You didn't hear the things he said to me during sparring. Weakling, pathetic. The list goes on. He'll do worse if he thinks it works, Leela replied. Trust me, I've dealt with bullies before. They only stop when they realize they can't. When her words seemed to settle something in Alex, because he straightened slightly. Determination replacing frustration. Fine. No more letting him get to me. But if he calls me weak again, You're going to stay focused, Mia interrupted. Firmly. That's what Lila's saying. Focus on surviving today. And tomorrow will take care of itself. After lunch, the recruits gathered for another session, this time focusing on teamwork. Varnick divided them into pairs, assigning tasks that required coordination and trust. Leela found herself paired with Mia, while Alex was matched with a burly alien recruit named Kren, whose multiple arms made simple tasks unnecessarily complicated. Their assignment was to carry a heavy crate across a balance beam without dropping it. It sounded straightforward enough, but the beam swayed dangerously with every step, forcing the pairs to communicate constantly. Leela and Mia worked seamlessly, their movements synchronized as if they had trained together for years. They completed the task in record time, earning another rare nod from VAR and OK. Alex, however, wasn't having the same luck. Kren's enthusiasm outweighed his coordination, and the crate slipped from his grasp multiple times, crashing to the ground with a loud thud. Each failure drew a sharp rebuke from Varnick, who seemed to take particular pleasure in berating Alex. Useless. Varnick snapped after one particularly disastrous attempt. Even a child could perform better than this. Alex clenched his fist, his jaw tightening as he fought to control his temper. Leela exchanged a glance with Mia, silently urging him to stay calm. But the tension in the air was palpable, and it was clear Alex was reaching his breaking point. When the exercise ended, Varnick dismissed the group for a short break. Most of the recruits collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath. Leela approached Alex, who was pacing angrily near the edge of the field. You okay? She asked cautiously. No, I'm not okay. Alex exploded, spinning around to face her. That thing keeps pushing me, mocking me, treating me like I'm worthless. How am I supposed to just stand there and take it? You don't. Leela said evenly. You prove him wrong. Show him you're stronger than his insults. Alex stared at her, his chest rising and falling rapidly for a moment. He looked like he might argue further, but then he exhaled sharply and sank onto the ground. You're right, he muttered. I need to keep my cool. It's just hard. It's supposed to be hard. Leela replied. If it were easy, everyone would make it through. By the time the afternoon drills began, Alex seemed to have regained some composure. He worked harder, channeling his frustration into action rather than reaction. Though Varnick continued to criticize him, Alex no longer rose to the bait, instead focusing on improving his technique. As the day drew to a close, the recruits returned to the barracks, their bodies aching and their spirits tested. Leela lay awake in her bunk, replaying the events in her mind. She had seen flashes of potential in both Alex and Mia, glimpses of the strength they would need to succeed. But she also knew the road ahead would only grow tougher. Varnick wasn't done with them, not by a long shot. Still, Leela couldn't help feeling a small sense of pride. She had survived the first day, despite the odds stacked against her. And if there was one thing she had learned on her death world, it was that survival was the first step toward victory. With that thought, she closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the barracks fade into the background. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. Whatever came next, she would face it head on. Document. Part 3 The days blurred together, each one more grueling than the last. The recruits rose before dawn, their bodies stiff from the previous day's exertions, and stumbled into formation as the first rays of sunlight painted the academy in hues of gold and orange. Leela moved with quiet determination, her steps steady even as fatigue tugged at her muscles. Around her, the others groaned and shuffled, some barely able to keep their eyes open. But Leela had learned long ago that sleep was a luxury she couldn't always afford, not on her homeworld, and certainly not here. Instructor Varnick wasted no time getting started. His voice cut through the early morning air like a blade, sharp and unyielding. Today, you will face combat simulations. These are designed to test your instincts, your teamwork, and your ability to adapt under pressure. Fail, and you will regret it. Leela exchanged a glance with Alex and Mia, who stood beside her. Both looked wary but focused. They had grown closer over the past few days, forming an unspoken bond born out of shared struggles. Alex had tempered his impulsiveness, learning to channel his energy into precision rather than reckless aggression. Mia, ever observant, had become the strategist of their trio, analyzing situations with a clarity that often caught Leela off guard. And Leela herself, she remained the anchor, the one who kept them grounded when frustration threatened to overwhelm them. The combat simulations took place in a vast arena, its walls lined with holographic projectors capable of creating lifelike battle scenarios. Varnick divided the recruits into teams of 4, assigning them objectives such as capturing enemy flags or defending key positions. The stakes were high. Failure meant extra drills under Varnick's watchful eye, a punishment no one wanted to endure. Leela found herself grouped with Alex, Mia, and another recruit named Jorik, a reptilian alien with shimmering green scales and a low, guttural voice. As they huddled together to plan their strategy, Leela noticed how naturally the roles fell into place. Mia outlined the approach, her voice calm and measured. "We'll split up," she suggested. "Jorik and I will take the flanks while Leela and Alex handle the center. If anything goes wrong, we regroup at the fallback point." Alex nodded, though his usual bravado was tempered by a newfound seriousness. "Got it. Let's show these guys what we're made of." The simulation began with a burst of light, and suddenly the arena transformed into a dense jungle. Holographic trees towered above them, their leaves rustling in an artificial breeze. Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of enemy drones signaled the start of the challenge. Leela led the way, her movements fluid and deliberate as she navigated the terrain. She could hear Alex behind her, his footsteps heavier but no less determined. To drones ahead, Mia whispered through their comms, "I can see them from my position." "Take them out quietly," Leela replied, her voice barely audible. "We don't want to alert the others." Mia acknowledged the order, and moments later, the soft hiss of a silenced weapon echoed through the jungle. The drones collapsed, their holographic forms dissolving into static. The team pressed onward, their coordination seamless despite the chaos around them. But the simulation wasn't without its surprises. As they approached the objective, a glowing beacon guarded by several enemy units, Leela spotted movement in the periphery of her vision. Before she could react, a drone lunged at her, its mechanical arms reaching for her throat. Instinct kicked in, and she twisted away, grabbing its limb and using its momentum to hurl it into a nearby tree. The impact shattered the drone, but the noise drew the attention of the remaining enemies. "Hostiles incoming," Jorik growled. Raising his weapon, the team sprang into action, taking cover behind trees and rocks as laser fire erupted around them. Leela moved swiftly, dodging blasts and returning fire with deadly accuracy. Her years of hunting predators on her homeworld had honed her reflexes, allowing her to anticipate the enemy's movements. Beside her, Alex provided covering fire, his aim improving with each passing moment. "We're pinned down," Mia called out, her voice tight with urgency. "Need a diversion." Without hesitation, Leela grabbed a smoke grenade from her belt and hurled it toward the enemy line. Thick gray clouds billowed outward, obscuring their vision. "Go now," she shouted. Gesturing for Mia and Jorik to advance, the distraction worked. While the enemies fumbled in the haze, Mia and Jorik slipped past their defenses, disabling the guards with swift, efficient strikes. Within minutes, they reached the beacon, securing it just as the simulation ended. The jungle dissolved back into the empty arena, leaving the recruits gasping for breath. "Well done," Varnick said, his tone begrudging but unmistakably approving. "For once, you humans didn't embarrass yourselves." It wasn't praise exactly, but it was as close as Varnick ever came to acknowledging success. Leela allowed herself a small smile as she rejoined her teammates. Alex clapped her on the shoulder, his grin wide and genuine. "That was incredible," he said. "You've got some serious moves, Carter." "Teamwork won that fight," Leela replied, glancing at Mia and Jorik. "Not just me." Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Still, you're a natural leader. You kept us focused when things got chaotic." Jorik tilted his head, his forked tongue flicking briefly. "Agreed. Your instincts are impressive. Their words warmed Leela, though she didn't let it show. She had spent so much of her life fighting alone. The idea of relying on others still felt foreign. But here, among these recruits, she was beginning to understand the power of trust. Later that evening, as the group gathered in the mess hall, rumors spread about the next phase of training, sparring matches against senior cadets. These sessions were infamous for pushing new recruits to their limits, forcing them to adapt to opponents far more skilled than themselves. For many, it was the most daunting part of basic training. Alex shoveled food into his mouth, his earlier confidence wavering slightly. Senior cadets, huh? Guess we'd better be ready for a beating. Don't think like that, Mia said firmly. Focus on what we can control. We've come this far because we work together. That won't change. Leela nodded, chewing slowly as she considered the challenge ahead. Sparring against experienced fighters would be dangerous, but it was also an opportunity to learn, to grow, to prove themselves. She glanced around the room, noticing the mix of apprehension and determination on the faces of her fellow recruits. They were all scared, but they were also resilient. That gave her hope. When the sparring sessions began the following day, the recruits filed into the arena with a mix of dread and resolve. Leela watched as the senior cadets entered, their movements confident and precise. Among them was Kale, a human fighter known for his speed and agility. He caught her gaze briefly, his expression unreadable, before turning to face his opponent. The matches proceeded quickly, each bout lasting only a few minutes. Some recruits struggled, overwhelmed by the skill of their adversaries. Others held their own, earning nods of respect from the seniors. When it was Lila's turn, she stepped forward without hesitation, meeting her opponent, a towering alien with forearms and a reputation for brutality. The match began with a flurry of blows, the alien testing her defenses with rapid strikes. Leela ducked and weaved, her movements economical as she searched for an opening. She knew she couldn't overpower him. Instead, she relied on her agility and timing, striking when he overextended and retreating before he could counter. The crowd murmured in approval, impressed by her technique. Even Varnick seemed intrigued, his antennae twitching as he observed the fight. Finally, Leela seized her chance, dodging a powerful swipe. She drove her elbow into the alien's side, exploiting a weak point in his armor. He staggered, giving her just enough time to deliver a final blow that sent him crashing to the ground. The arena erupted in cheers, and Leela straightened, breathing hard but triumphant. Her opponent rose slowly, offering a respectful nod before stepping back. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. As the session ended, Leela joined her teammates outside the arena, their faces glowing with pride. Alex grinned, shaking his head in disbelief. You make it look easy, Carter. It's not easy, Leela replied, her voice steady. But it's worth it. And for the first time since arriving at the academy, she truly believed it. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she wasn't walking it alone. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way, and they would emerge stronger for it. *** document. Part for ***. The days at the academy grew harder, and the recruits began to feel the weight of their training pressing down on them. Every morning started with Varnick's sharp commands, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. The exercises became more intense, pushing the recruits to their limits. Leela, Alex, and Mia had formed a tight-knit trio, relying on each other for support when the pressure became too much. But even their bond couldn't shield them from the growing tension in the air. One evening, after another grueling day of drills, the recruits gathered in the mess hall. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as everyone tried to recover from the physical and mental strain of the day. Leela sat with Alex and Mia, picking at her food while listening to the chatter around her. Some recruits complained about Varnick's harshness, while others speculated about upcoming challenges. Despite the fatigue etched into every face, there was an undercurrent of determination, a shared understanding that they were all fighting to survive. Alex leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms above his head. I don't know how much more of this I can take, he muttered, though his tone lacked real complaint. Every day it feels like he's trying to break us. He is, Mia said simply, her dark eyes scanning the room. That's his job. He wants to see who cracks first. Leela nodded, her gaze fixed on her plate. And we can't let him win. Not yet. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, but it's not just the drills. It's the way he talks to us like we're nothing. Like we'll never be good enough. Mia tilted her head, studying Alex carefully. You really care? What he thinks, of course I do. Alex snapped, louder than he intended. Several nearby recruits glanced over, but he ignored them, lowering his voice. He's supposed to teach us, not tear us apart. What's the point of all this if he doesn't think we can succeed? Leela set her fork down. turning to face Alex fully. It's not about him, she said firmly. It's about us. You can't let his words get inside your head. Trust me, I've dealt with people like him before. Alex frowned, his brow furrowing. People like him? You mean aliens who hate humans? No, Leela replied, her voice soft but steady. Bullies. Back on my planet, there were always people who thought I didn't belong, that I wasn't strong enough or smart enough. They tried to break me too. Alex stared at her, surprised by the raw honesty in her words. What did you do? I survived, Leela said simply. I didn't fight them, not at first. I just kept going, no matter what they said. Eventually, they stopped because they realized it didn't work. They couldn't break me for a moment. Alex was silent, digesting her story. Then he exhaled, sharply, shaking his head. You make it sound so easy. It's not easy, Leela admitted. But it's simple. Don't give him power over you. Focus on why you're here and stay focused. Mia chimed in, her voice calm but firm. She's right, Alex. Varnick thrives on making us doubt ourselves. If we let him, we're playing right into his hands. Alex rubbed his temples, frustration still simmering beneath the surface. Okay, fine. I'll try. But it's not just about ignoring him. I need to prove something to myself. You know, we all do. Mia said softly. That's why we're here. Later that night, after the barracks had grown quiet, Alex lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Lila's words replayed in his mind, echoing like a mantra. Asterisk, don't give him power over you. Asterisk, he wanted to believe it, to trust that he could rise above Varnick's taunts. But the doubt lingered, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. The next morning brought another round of sparring matches, this time pitting recruits against each other. The atmosphere in the arena was tense, everyone aware that these bouts would reveal weaknesses and strengths. When Alex stepped forward for his match, he felt the weight of Varnick's gaze on him, heavy and unyielding. His opponent was a weary alien named Zorik, known for his speed and unpredictability. As the two faced off, Alex forced himself to breathe deeply, focusing on the task at hand. He remembered Lila's advice, don't react, adapt. When the match began, Zorik darted forward, his movements erratic and hard to follow. Alex stumbled backward, barely dodging a flurry of strikes. Predictable. Varnick called out, his voice dripping with disdain. You call yourself a fighter? Alex gritted his teeth, anger flaring in his chest. For a split second, he considered charging blindly at Zorik, letting his rage guide him. But then he heard Lila's voice in his mind, clear and steady. Asterisk focused. Asterisk taking a deep breath, Alex slowed down, analyzing Zorik's movements. There was a pattern, subtle but present. Zorik favored quick burst followed by brief pauses to regain balance. Alex waited for one of those pauses, timing his counterattack perfectly. When Zorik lunged again, Alex sidestepped and delivered a sharp strike to his side, sending him sprawling. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Alex straightened, his heart pounding. He hadn't won the match outright, but he had held his own end. More importantly, he had stayed calm. As Zorik rose to his feet, offering a respectful nod, Alex felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he understood what Leela meant about proving something to himself. After the session ended, Leela approached him, her expression unreadable. Not bad, she said, her tone neutral, but with a hint of approval. Thanks, Alex replied, grinning despite himself. Guess I'm learning. You are, Leela said. Just don't stop. Meanwhile, Mia had been observing the matches closely, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She noticed how some recruits relied on brute force, while others used strategy and precision. Each style had its strengths and weaknesses, and Mia stored these observations away, filing them for future use. When her turn came, she faced a towering alien recruit named Threx, whose sheer size made him seem unbeatable. But Mia wasn't intimidated. She moved with deliberate slowness, circling Threx and forcing him to adjust his stance. Unlike many of the other recruits, she didn't rush to attack. Instead, she waited, watching for openings. When Threx finally lunged, she slipped beneath his guard, delivering a series of precise strikes that left him staggering. The crowd murmured in surprise, impressed by her technique. Even Varnick clicked his mandibles approvingly, though he quickly masked it with a scowl. As Mia stepped back, breathing evenly, she exchanged a glance with Leela. They didn't need words to communicate. Both knew they were growing stronger together. That evening, the trio met in the corner of the mess hall, away from the noise and chaos. Leela leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. We're getting better, she said. But this isn't over. Varnick isn't done testing us. No. Kidding, Alex muttered. What's next? Gladiatorial combat, Mia smirked, though her expression remained serious. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. Leela nodded, her gaze steady. Exactly. We've come this far because we trust each other. Don't forget that. As the conversation continued, the three of them began discussing strategies for future challenges. Alex suggested ways to improve their teamwork during simulations, while Mia outlined potential scenarios they might face. Leela listened intently, adding insights drawn from her experiences on her homeworld. By the time they parted ways for the night, a renewed sense of purpose had settled over them. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. And though the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, they knew they could overcome anything as long as they stood together. In the darkness of the barracks, Leela lay awake, her thoughts drifting to the days ahead. She had faced countless battles on her death world, but this fight was different. Here, she wasn't alone. Here, she had allies, friends who shared her determination to succeed. With that thought, she closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the barracks fade into silence. Whatever challenges awaited them, she was ready. Document, Part 5 The morning sun rose over the academy, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The recruits assembled in silence, their faces pale with exhaustion and apprehension. It was clear that Varnick had something big planned for the day, something that would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Leela stood tall, her hands clasped behind her back as she waited for instructions. Beside her, Alex shifted nervously, while Mia remained calm, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Varnick strode into view, his glossy black exoskeleton gleaming in the sunlight. His mandibles clicked rhythmically as he addressed the group. Today, he began, his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. You will face a challenge unlike any you have encountered before. This is not just about strength or skill, it is about survival. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but Varnick silenced it with a single glare. He gestured toward a massive structure at the far end of the field, a labyrinth made of towering walls and jagged obstacles. Holographic projections flickered along its edges, hinting at dangers lurking within. This is the gauntlet, Varnick continued, his tone dripping with menace. It simulates combat scenarios designed to push you to your limits. You will navigate it alone, without assistance from your teammates. Fail, and you will face consequences far worse than extra drills. Lila's stomach tightened. She had faced countless challenges on her homeworld, but this was different. The thought of entering the labyrinth alone filled her with unease. Still, she kept her expression neutral, refusing to show weakness. Around her, the other recruits exchanged worried glances, their fear palpable. You will enter one at a time, Varnick instructed. Your objective is simple, reach the exit alive. Do whatever it takes to survive. As the first recruit stepped forward, Leela felt a surge of determination. She wouldn't let fear control her, not now, not ever. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it head on. The first few recruits entered the gauntlet, their progress tracked by holographic monitors visible to everyone outside. Some moved quickly, navigating the maze with surprising speed. Others faltered, their hesitation costing them dearly as traps triggered and holographic enemies swarmed them. When a recruit failed, they were dragged out by instructors, their faces pale and shaken. When it was Alex's turn, he approached the entrance with a mix of bravado and anxiety. Leela watched as he disappeared into the labyrinth, her heart pounding. Moments later, the monitors showed him sprinting down a narrow corridor, dodging blasts from hidden turrets. He moved with surprising agility, his earlier struggles replaced by raw focus. He's doing well, Mia whispered, standing beside Leela. Better than I expected. Leela nodded, her gaze fixed on the screen. He's learning to adapt. Inside the gauntlet, Alex faced wave after wave of holographic foes, each more dangerous than the last. He fought with everything he had, channeling his frustration into every strike. When a trap nearly caught him, he twisted away at the last second, narrowly avoiding injury. By the time he reached the exit, sweat poured down his face, but he emerged triumphant, earning a rare nod of approval from Varnok. Next was Mia's turn. She entered the labyrinth with quiet confidence, her movements deliberate and precise. Unlike Alex, she didn't rush. Instead, she analyzed every step, anticipating traps and evading enemies with ease. Her strategy paid off. She completed the course without triggering a single alarm, her composure unshaken. She's incredible, Alex muttered as Mia rejoined them. How does she stay so calm? It's who she is, Leela replied simply. She sees things others miss. Finally, it was Lila's turn. As she stepped toward the entrance, Varnick's antennae twitched, and he tilted his head slightly. The Death World Scavenger, he said, his tone mocking. Let us see if your primitive instincts serve you here. Leela ignored him, stepping into the gauntlet without hesitation. The walls closed in around her, plunging her into darkness. For a moment, she stood still, listening to the faint hum of machinery and the distant echo of footsteps. Then she moved forward, her senses heightened. The first obstacle came quickly, a series of collapsing platforms suspended over a pit of jagged spikes. Leela scaled them with practiced ease, her muscles accustomed to climbing treacherous terrain. At the top, she paused, scanning the area for signs of danger. A holographic predator lunged at her from the shadows, its claws glinting in the dim light. Leela twisted away, grabbing its arm and using its momentum to hurl it into a wall. The creature dissolved into static, but the sound of its collapse triggered a trap. Laser beams shot out from the walls, forcing her to leap and roll to avoid being hit. Focus, she whispered to herself, her breathing steady despite the chaos. One step at a time, deeper into the labyrinth, the challenges grew more complex. She encountered holographic allies who turned hostile mid-battle, forcing her to adapt quickly. She navigated rooms filled with shifting floors and collapsing ceilings, relying on her instincts to guide her. Each victory brought her closer to the exit, but also deeper into the heart of the gauntlet. At one point, she found herself cornered by multiple enemies, their weapons trained on her. There was no way out, no obvious path forward. Leela crouched low, her mind racing. Then she spotted it, a weak point in the wall, barely visible beneath layers of holographic projection. With a burst of speed, she charged forward, slamming her shoulder into the spot. The wall crumbled, revealing a hidden passage. That's cheating. Varnik's voice echoed through the labyrinth, though there was a hint of admiration in his tone. Leela didn't respond. She pressed onward, her determination unwavering. Finally, she reached the exit, emerging into the bright sunlight. Her chest heaved as she caught her breath, but she straightened, meeting Varnik's gaze with calm defiance. Well done, he admitted grudgingly, his mandibles clicking softly. For a human, Leela didn't reply. She simply turned and walked back to her teammates, who greeted her with wide eyes and relieved smiles. You were amazing, Alex said, clapping her on the shoulder. I've never seen anyone move like that. It was nothing, Leela replied, though her words lacked conviction. Even she had to admit, the gauntlet had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated. That evening, the recruits gathered in the mess hall, their bodies aching but their spirits lifted by their shared success. Leela sat with Alex and Mia, picking at her food as they discussed the day's events. I can't believe we all made it through, Alex said, shaking his head in disbelief. I thought for sure I'd get fried by those lasers. You handled yourself well, Mia said, her tone approving. You're improving faster than I expected. Alex grinned, though his expression turned serious as he glanced at Leela. But you're on another level. How do you stay so calm under pressure? Leela shrugged, her gaze distant. It's how I survived on my planet. Panic gets you killed. Focus keeps you alive. Mia nodded, her dark eyes thoughtful. There's more to it than that. You've got something most people don't, a kind of resilience. Like nothing can break you. Leela didn't respond immediately. She wasn't used to compliments, especially ones that delved so deeply into her character. Finally, she said softly, it's not about being unbreakable. It's about knowing when to bend and when to fight. The conversation paused as the three of them reflected on her words. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the academy in shades of orange and purple. For a moment, the weight of their training seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet sense of camaraderie. We're getting stronger, Alex said finally, breaking the silence. Not just individually but as a team. Yes, Mia agreed. And that's what will keep us alive. Leela smiled faintly, her thoughts drifting to the days ahead. The gauntlet had been a formidable test, but she knew it was only the beginning. Whatever challenges awaited them, she was ready. Together, they would face them, and together, they would overcome. As the night deepened and the barracks grew quiet, Leela lay awake in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the gauntlet, about Varnik's taunts, and about the bond she shared with Alex and Mia. They weren't just teammates, they were family. And no matter what lay ahead, she knew they would stand together. With that thought, she closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the barracks fade into silence. Whatever tomorrow held, she was prepared. Document. Part 6 The days following the gauntlet were a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. The recruits had survived one of the toughest challenges yet, but they knew better than to think it was over. Varnik's presence loomed larger than ever, his sharp gaze scanning the group like a predator sizing up its prey. Leela, Alex, and Mia trained harder than before, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They pushed themselves not just for survival, but to prove something to Varnik, to the academy, and most importantly, to themselves. One morning, As the recruits gathered in the training yard, Varnik's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Today, we test your combat skills against mine," he announced, his mandibles clicking ominously. "A demonstration bout. One of you will face me in hand-to-hand combat." The announcement sent a ripple of unease through the group. No one moved, each recruit silently hoping someone else would volunteer. Varnik's reputation as an unbeatable fighter was well known, and the thought of stepping into the ring with him seemed like signing a death wish. "Come now," Varnik sneered, pacing in front of the group. "Surely one of you has the courage to step forward, or are all of you too afraid?" Leela clenched her fist, her heart pounding. She hated the way he mocked them, treating them like insects beneath his feet. But she also knew better than to act on impulse. Fighting Varnik wasn't just about strength, it was about strategy, patience, and knowing when to strike. Alex glanced at her, his expression tense. "He's baiting us," he muttered under his breath. "Don't fall for it." Mia nodded, her dark eyes fixed on Varnik. "We need to stay calm. He's looking for a reaction." But Leela felt something stir deep inside her, a mix of anger and defiance. She had spent her life fighting to survive, enduring hardships that would break most people. She wasn't about to let Varnik humiliate her or her teammates any longer. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Varnik's antennae twitched, and a low, guttural sound escaped his throat, something between a laugh and a growl. "Ah, the Death World Scavenger," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Brave enough to face me? Very well. Let us see if your primitive instincts can match my skill." The other recruits parted, forming a wide circle around the makeshift arena. Leela walked to the center, her movements deliberate and controlled. She could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her, but she forced herself to focus. This wasn't about proving herself to them, it was about standing up to Varnik, about showing him that she wouldn't be broken. As the two faced off, the difference in size and strength was glaringly obvious. Varnik towered over her, his insectoid body gleaming in the sunlight. His limbs were long and powerful, designed for speed and precision. Leela, by comparison, looked small and fragile, but she didn't flinch. She had faced predators far more terrifying than this alien instructor. "Begin," Varnik barked, lunging forward with startling speed. Leela ducked, narrowly avoiding his first strike. His claws grazed the air above her head, close enough to make her hair stand on end. She rolled to the side, putting distance between them as she assessed his movements. Varnik fought with calculated precision, his attack swift and relentless. But there was a pattern to his strikes, a rhythm she could exploit if she stayed focused. "You're fast," Varnik admitted, circling her with predatory grace, "but speed alone won't save you." Leela didn't respond. She kept her breathing steady, her mind clear. When Varnik attacked again, she sidestepped, using his momentum against him. She drove her elbow into his side, aiming for a weak point in his exoskeleton. The blow landed, drawing a sharp hiss from Varnik, but it wasn't enough to slow him down. "Not bad," he sneered, recovering quickly, "but you'll need more than that to win." The fight intensified, Varnik pressing his advantage with a flurry of strikes. Leela blocked and dodged, her movements fluid and economical. She couldn't afford to waste energy, not against an opponent like this. Every time she found an opening, she struck, targeting vulnerable areas where his armor was thinner. The crowd watched in stunned silence, their earlier skepticism replaced by awe. No one had expected Leela to last this long against Varnik. Even Alex and Mia, who had seen her fight before, were amazed by her resilience. "She's incredible," Alex whispered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "How is she still standing?" "Because she doesn't give up," Mia replied, her eyes never leaving the fight. "That's what makes her strong." Inside the arena, Leela felt her muscles burning, her body pushed to its limits, but she refused to back down. She remembered the lessons of her homeworld, the importance of timing, of waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Finally, she saw it, as Varnik lunged forward. His guard dropped slightly, exposing his midsection. Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, Leela launched herself at him, driving her knee into his exposed flank. The impact sent him stumbling backward, his balance faltering before he could recover. She followed up with a powerful kick to his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. For a moment, there was silence. Then the crowd erupted into cheers, their voices echoing across the training yard. Leela stood over Varnik, her chest heaving as she caught her breath. Her legs trembled with exhaustion, but she didn't waver. She had done it. She had stood up to Varnik and proven that she was more than just a primitive scavenger. Varnik rose slowly, his mandibles clicking furiously. There was no mistaking the anger in his eyes, but there was also something else grudging. "Respect." "Impressive," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. You've earned my attention, human. Leela didn't reply. She simply turned and walked away, rejoining her teammates as the crowd continued to cheer. Alex clapped her on the shoulder, his grin wide and genuine. I can't believe you just did that, he said. You shattered his face. It's not over, Leela replied, her tone serious. He's not going to forget this. Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. She's right. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Later that evening, the trio met in the corner of the mess hall, away from the noise and chaos. Leela picked at her food, her thoughts still lingering on the fight. She had stood up to Varnick, but she knew the consequences wouldn't be pleasant. He wasn't the kind of instructor to let something like this slide. What happens now? Alex asked, voicing the question they were all thinking. Do you think he'll retaliate? He already is, Mia said quietly. This isn't just about Leela anymore. It's about all of us. He'll try to break us to make sure none of us forgets who's in charge. Leela nodded, her gaze distant. Then we don't let him. We keep pushing forward, no matter what. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. Easier said than done. You saw how angry he was after the fight. What if he goes after us next? He might, Mia admitted. But we're stronger together. Remember that. The conversation paused as they considered the road ahead. The fight had been a victory, but it had also raised the stakes. Varnick wouldn't stop until he had reclaimed his authority, and that meant trouble for all of them. We'll handle it, Leela said finally, her voice firm. One step at a time. As the night wore on, the barracks grew quiet, the recruits drifting off to sleep. Leela lay awake in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She replayed the fight in her mind, analyzing every move, every decision. She had faced Varnick and survived, but she knew this was only the start of something much bigger. Outside, the wind howled softly, carrying with it the promise of challenges yet to come. Leela closed her eyes, letting the sounds lull her into a restless sleep. Whatever tomorrow held, she was ready. Together, they would face it, and together, they would overcome.